The thing that I would diagnose the revenue community that you and I both live in, either directly or peripherally, is that we've just really forgotten about the individual consumer. We've forgotten that it's a person that somehow connects with our product, that purchases it for a reason. We call people MQLs and SQLs and clients and customers and leads and prospects and all these other names, and just not like they're a human. And we don't treat them like humans. We group them into segments and personas and all this kind of thing.
Today's successful revenue leaders once started their careers just like you and I. They faced the challenges that their careers brought to them, they rose to the occasion, and became the leaders that we admire today. Join me as we explore the skills and stories that make a great leader with a pinch of vulnerability. Hello and welcome to Sales Therapy. I'm your host, Alper Yurder. Grab a chair. This is your exclusive invitation to the therapy room, as leaders are going to be sharing their career-defining moments, their secret tips and tricks in their arsenal towards success. And I promise we'll always end on a positive note. Today in the therapy chair, we have Leslie Greenwood, who is the co-founder and CEO of Chief Evangelist Consulting, which helps founders, startups, and community builders bring an evangelist-led growth strategy into their business. Now, I know everyone's already thinking, okay, what is a Chief Evangelist Officer and what does evangelism mean? It might mean different things to different people, and that's part of the reason what attracted me to have Leslie as a guest today. But she has over 20 years of leadership experience in community, customer success, support, so all those good things that we love at Sales Therapy. And we'll talk about her success, the joy, the pain, and the journey as usual. So welcome to Sales Therapy, Leslie, and how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling very therapized. You're going to warm me up for my real therapy session tomorrow. I'll be all ready.
Excellent. Yeah, this comes up usually. Like, do you go to therapy, like psychology, do you see a psychologist, etc.? And I'm like, this is the best gift you can give. Sooner the better. Go to a therapist.
Yeah, get rid of the stigma. It's mental fitness. You go to the gym, just go to therapy. Everybody has you may have a great copay, or you may not have a great copay. Or if you're lucky to be in Europe, you don't have a copay. There you go.
So was my intro. I tried my best with the intro, but I'm sure like people would like to hear you from yourself, Leslie. Do you want to give a little teaser of who is the person we're talking to today?
Sure. Well, the quick near-term answer is you said, what is evangelism and what do I do? And basically it boils down to I help both companies and membership-based communities build strategic communities, looking at it from the very bottom foundation all the way up to, which is one reason why I was excited for this, up to the psychology of human connection and how do we get people to connect and to create the bonds that I know will make a sticky community. So that is what I do. I love that part of my job. I do have a second job, which is the co-founder of Wednesday Women, which is an organization that uplifts and shines a spotlight on executive women leaders, just to give them more of a platform. We are not a community, but we are building community around our mission. So it's a little bit different application of community. And so that's been really interesting as well.
Love it. Love the title, the person, the energy, the various things that you're doing. So we'll talk about all of that. But any good therapy starts with childhood and growing up. So let's hear a little bit like, I really love understanding how the growing up experience shapes the person that we are in our lives today, our business, how we act at business. Some go, I'm going to overshare today a little bit. Like, so for example, your leadership style, if you have a very disciplined childhood, you might go like everything has to be perfect. You might tend to be a micromanager. Sometimes I've seen all of that. I've been there, etc. As I said, I'll overshare today. I'm just curious, like, tell us about your younger years and how was growing up for you? What kind of an experience was it for you?
We grew up in very rural Indiana. So, outside of the big city of 40,000 people, literally surrounded by cornfields. There were 88 people in my graduating class, very blue collar, farm type of community. I am definitely a city girl. So I was basically a fish out of water my entire life. Very non-diverse community. We had a Catholic. That's how diverse we were. One. So it just a very different experience in the way that I have chosen to live my life now. I was a really smart kid. And so smart wasn't really cool. And I kind of went
Ah,
through the ups and downs of accepting being smart and then saying, screw it, being smart isn't doing me anything. Let me go drink beer in a cornfield and skip school. And I think how this shapes what I am now. Granted, I'm older now, and I think my leadership style has changed over the years and matured as I have. But one of the things that I've talked about this on LinkedIn lately, is like, I am definitely a square peg in a round hole world, and I am done shaving off my edges. I've spent my whole life filing the edges, hoping to fit in, and it's just not going to happen. And I am completely now okay with it and embrace it. And just like, you know what? I had a podcast with Ravi Rajani, and he said it's both attract and repel. I'll
yeah.
attract the people that are like me and repel the ones that don't need to be in my life. And I'm working on being okay with that, and that if you don't like me or you just are tolerating me, like, be gone with yourself.
Yeah,
Like, I don't
that's
need you.
that's your choice. Live your life without me and happy days. Wonderful.
Yeah.
I love how at
Peace out.
some point in our lives we all come to those points. Some sooner, some later. And I think that has a lot to do with growing up too. Like, I even see it with my co-founders sometimes, or people I speak to. My very close friends. And the sooner you get to that point that you are right now, Leslie, the better for people, I guess. I don't know if you agree.
And I hope that, like, this new, it's because we're more open to talk about therapy. We're more open to talk about our troubles, and that everything everything that looks perfect is not. That
Yeah.
I'm hoping, that people will come to it earlier. And honestly, part of my story is sharing that, so that people are like, oh, how do you do it? How do you manage? It's like, dude, I'm a hot mess. Don't try to emulate this. You'll
Okay.
get there.
Well, great segue. Boy, did I train you in the podcast before? I didn't. Let disclaimer. It's a great segue because part of the reason why I'm doing this is to show maybe more junior folks. I don't want to say younger folks because you can be any age, whatever. People who are a bit earlier in their career who need this experience, like achieve. They look at the leaders of today. They look at you and they see, wow, Leslie has done this, that, and wonderful, etc. Like, we weren't always that. We started somewhere. We had our highs and lows. So maybe let's talk about that a little bit. Like, can you share with us a little bit your career journey? How did you start work? And let's take it from there.
I think my main working experience after college, I came out, didn't know what I want to be when I grew up, went to Korea to study international business, and decided it was much more fun to drink beer and party and teach rich
Drinking
kids
beer
English.
seems to be a common thread. This already came
I
up
don't even
twice.
like beer. Here's the thing. I don't even like beer.
Okay.
And teaching rich kids English. But I just decided after the first semester I wasn't going back. So I moved to Chicago. I got a job in retail, rose through the ranks, ended up being a store manager. And I was a really terrible, I would call myself, I was even a terrible manager. I wasn't even a terrible leader. There was no leading. It was managing. And, I didn't understand, leading. I didn't understand influence. It was do what I say because I said so. And then I'd get all mad and hurt about it, but I was 25, and I was, leading people who were 40 and things like that. It was, my first journey, and it kind of stunk at it. And then after that, it was I worked for my parents. My parents were entrepreneurs as well, so I worked for them for a while. And then someone bought their business, and when I had my first daughter, I said, okay, well, my parents just let people bring their baby to work. That's just what it's going to be. And they changed their policy, and I ran your business, so I'm going to run mine. So at 5 months old, I started my first business, took purchase order numbers, wrote them on a diaper with a crayon. With my BlackBerry, I thought I was so cool and ahead of the curve. So that was my first journey into entrepreneurship.
Yeah. May I ask how long ago was this?
She's 23. So 22 years ago, I had all three of my kids while I had my
Wow.
business.
Wow.
I
You
had my business
started.
for 10.
Wow.
But yeah,
Okay.
I had my
So
business for 10 years.
your career grew with your children. Wow. That's quite inspiring.
Yeah.
And then can you talk to us a little bit? Like, I know that you are, advising. You're an advisor. You're kind of a consultant at the same time. Maybe talk us
Mhm.
through like the different hats that you wear and how you got to that point.
Yeah. Can I tell you my startup story?
Please do.
Before that, I was getting ready I'd been a stay-at-home mom for a couple years. That's in my headline. I make fun of the ex-Googlers, and I put ex-stay-at-home mom. And I called a friend who was working at this new company, and I said, how's after school care? And I guess the vice president of sales was walking past and said, oh, you have a friend that needs a job. Can they come in tomorrow for an interview? And I'm like, okay, sure. And so I show up in kind of a shady part of town, and it's what you think of as a 2014 startup. You got the ping pong table, you got the developers working in the dark on their Amazon boxes. And then the founder can't talk to me till he finishes his stew that the chef cooked. And I'm like,
Oh,
what the freak? In his holy jeans. You know what I mean? Like, what the freak is this? And basically he told me I was terrible fit for that job, excused the two VPs out of the room that were interviewing with me and said, you know what? That's not the right job for you, but I have one that is. And he made up a job on the spot. And I was basically tier one support. So for all of those out there, I mean, that was at 44. I started in tier one support. I was making $40,000 a year as I just wanted to get out of the house. But I was an early employee, ended up building out the retention program, the onboarding program for employees and customers, training program, onboarded most of the core members of the team, and the company ended up getting purchased for 250 million, a couple years after that. And so that was my first ride in startups, like the
I
journey that
love
no
it.
one gets. Now, granted, it wasn't stupid money; it
Yeah.
was remodel your kitchen money. But that's how I got the startup bug. It was completely accidental that I ended up in the startup world, and I haven't looked back since.
Isn't it quite cool when people see the light in you and they shape something around that? Like we try to do the same a little bit at Flola. Like when we hire people, yes, we need like a million different skills, but who are you? What do you like? What are you capable of? And let's shape a role according to that as much as possible. So what did he see in you and what did you shape what did you guys shape that role into?
I answered all the phones. It
Okay.
was a SaaS platform for real estate tech. I basically answered the phones. They called me the voice of Commissions Inc. And so I answered tier one questions. I was, I would get people, to their success manager at some point, but I created these great relationships with our customers. I knew every in and out of the product. And so
Love it.
first promotion from there happened because a new president came in and he sat in front of my desk and he came out one day and said, I think we're underutilizing your capabilities. And he's like, you want to move to sales? I can double your pay. I said, okay, peace out. So I mean, yeah. And so that role actually ended up moving us to Dallas, and I was the VP of client services, taking over a department of 30 people. Again, going back to the challenges, I still wasn't a great leader then. I didn't understand it, and so I mean, even at 46, I still wasn't a great leader. So I made it way too hard on myself.
What's a great leader in your mind that you weren't that thing?
I think I had leader and manager confused. I didn't fully understand. And I think that's very, like you kind of intimated, it's fairly common. I didn't understand that my job was to lead and coach and train and level up the people that were with me instead of diving in and doing. So that's one thing. I am a doer. I get a lot of satisfaction from doing. And so that's one of my leadership challenges is that, I still want to be hands-on and scrappy. But yeah, no, I just didn't understand. And I didn't take the time to make the relationships that I came in with because I did what a lot of people taking over a department do is I came in and
Yeah.
wanted to make an impact quickly instead of learning everything I should have and made a slower entrance into the flow.
That's really nice. And then how did you learn to become a better leader as your roles progressed? I guess what kind of skills did you add to the toolbox that made you feel like
Mhm.
you're a better leader now than before?
Yeah, I think it was on the job training. Obviously, I've, read books on leadership. I went to workshops on leadership, et cetera. But I think it was seriously just a maturity level and also given the freedom to lead the way I wanted to lead. And I had that
Mm,
when I worked at Pavilion. I was able to lead, a team which grew to 18. And I would say the best team I ever had was that team. And we really did it in a different kind of way that made a huge difference.
yeah. For anyone listening and not familiar with Pavilion, Pavilion is probably, I mean, there's a lot of communities out there. It's probably one of the best that I've seen in my entire career. It's for, commercial leaders, revenue leadership roles, etc., where sales, client success, marketing, all of those people exchange great ideas. And it's a wonderful community of really strong professionals and people who are genuinely kind, etc. I mean, the purpose is not to promote them, but I really love them. So when I love something, I just say it. Also, the opposite. How did your relationship come
True.
about with Pavilion? Like, how did you start working with those folks?
Yeah. So once I came down here, moved my family across country, and got fired 8 months later, by the way. Let me tell you, that was guilt, shame. What have I done? I've moved my family across the country. I have teenagers, blah, blah, blah. It didn't matter. I got hired back they gave me a 3-month severance and I got hired back by the parent company the next day. So it was cool. I got double paid for
Nice,
3 months, but it still really hurt my
of
psyche.
course.
And so after I left that job and I was interviewed, I met someone who was a Pavilion member.
Mm.
And so I'm like, okay, I finally got a new job and I was going to work for a VP of sales. I'm like, I don't know what an MQL is and SQL and BANT is. What are these people talking about? Why are we, what is this knowledge that I'm completely missing? And so I ended up joining Pavilion because he'd recommended it and it was all SaaS leaders and I could start understanding what this VP of sales talk was. And so I was a member first, and then they tapped me to help grow the Dallas chapter. I actually did a lot of what I tell people to do in community, which is be visible. Get to know the community manager. I would give suggestions. I was probably too bossy. I made their quick start guide before I worked there because I was like, I can't find all your resources. This is confusing. Here, people, use this quick start guide. Still use today in a different form. And so then eventually Sam posted that he wanted to hire a super junior customer success manager to manage the community. And I slacked him and said, I don't think you should do that. I think we should talk. And he told me he couldn't afford an executive. And I said, well, I live in Texas, not New York, and customer success is the least paid role of all the go-to-markets. So maybe we should go talk. And we did. And a couple months later, I started. Yep. And then even now that I've left Pavilion, so I've been, have my own business now for 14 months and really excited to have crossed that 1 year mark. I'm still a member.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I love the people there. That's where all my people live. You know, my
Excellent.
friends, my confidants, the people that give me support, that help me with questions, that tag me in posts, that send me business. They're all there. I'll probably never leave.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask you about some of the lowlights to success, like on the way to success, and you already mentioned there. And I was laughing when you say you got fired, which isn't something that, but that's how I cope with basically like, difficult situations. I try to laugh through them. I'm still working on it for anybody listening. Yeah, can we go there a little bit? Like, what that was a lowlight, obviously, but you recovered quickly from it, it sounds.
Yeah, I mean, it took a little time. I mean, I definitely spent some days in bed,
Yeah,
with some tears and
great.
pity partying and all that stuff. Because at that point, I couldn't see what a blessing it was. Like, I definitely here's a life mantra that I have: when a door is open and the path is clear, you're meant to walk through. That's
Love
what
it.
that job was. I did know that there were obstacles that I was climbing over, so I knew that it wasn't quite right when I was leaving to move here, but my kids have thrived in Dallas. The education system is better than Atlanta. Like we were so meant to be here. Like it's been such a great opportunity for my family. So even though the mode was a struggle,
Yeah,
the result was meant to be. And I
excellent.
truly believe that we were meant to be here.
There's some good in
So
every kind of low
yeah.
light. Yeah,
So it
definitely.
just yeah, it just took
Just
some time. I
just life.
mean, and now that I've been in SaaS, everybody gets fired. Everybody gets fired every 18 months. So like I'm just joining the club.
I think the average tenure for a CRO is about 18 months. That might have gone
Mhm.
down in the last 6 months since I saw that fact, that data, because it's difficult. But coming to today, let's
Mhm.
come to today a little bit.
Mhm.
Let's talk about some of the more current issues you're dealing with. I mean, you're a
Okay.
founder. Obviously, you've just passed the 1 year mark. Congrats on that. I think we're in the same boat
Thank
in
you.
there. I like to ask this question in one way, like, what problems are you solving for in your business today? In other words, what brought you to therapy today? Like, what are the challenges we should talk about? Being
Mm.
a founder,
Yeah.
what are the struggles? What are the problems you're solving? And do you have any secret tips to tackle those things?
Well, the current challenges. One, I was just diagnosed with ADD, so I'm working through strategies for that. I think that's why a lot of people get attracted to startups because there's like stimulation all the time. Like
Yeah.
things are breaking, let's fix it, all the exciting things. So I'm working through that. I think a general founder challenge that I'm experiencing is that this is mine. So success is
Mm,
mine and failure is mine, and not putting too much weight on either of those scenarios. Like when and that's very much my personality. When the high is high, oh, I'm going to kill it. I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to be successful, blah, blah, blah. And then lose a deal or make a mistake. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going out of business tomorrow. How did I ever think this was going to work? So like that whole like mental journey is really rough, and I'm just trying to ride the middle, which that's not my personality. I don't know if you can tell that from our conversations so far. Um, so that's one thing. Also time management and boundaries. And it's
mm,
not other people imposing their boundaries on me. It's me trying to hold the boundaries that I set. So I say if I'm not taking appointments on this day, that I don't put appointments on my calendar, that I don't push myself to burn out, because that's just, I'm 110% kind of person all the time. 99 feels like failure. and that's just a personality trait that I'm working on, probably deep rooted in childhood, and having a pleasing personality and all this kind of stuff. So that is also one of the things, because I will burn myself out in a hot minute. I mean, heck, I now have two businesses. Like, who the freak decides to do that?
I'm just letting you speak, Leslie. You're just speaking what's in my mind and all the feelings that I have. So I'm letting you spill the beans on
Well,
my behalf. I think these are things that any founder struggle with, and any founder tries to find their way around these things. Every month, I promise to myself I'm not going to burn myself out. And then, I was in a podcast once, and somebody asked me, like, so how do you manage? Like, it's so stressful. You work a lot, all day, every day, blah, blah, blah. How do you manage? And I told them, well, I discovered this thing where I just tell myself one day a month, that day I'm not gonna think about work. That day, and they just told me we all have it. That's called a weekend, Alper.
see, the thing is, my brain is like 100,000 miles an hour all the time. So even if I say I'm not going to think about it, there's always the
That's it.
wheels turning in the
Yeah,
back thinking about it. So I
yeah,
never feel fully rested. Therefore, trying to work on some meditation and
yeah.
just things to like be present and grounded so that I can turn my brain off for
Okay.
a little while.
Well, you might not have an answer for this, but I'm just going to ask anyway. Like, are there any books, people, influencers, that leaders you look up to who have helped with that? Like, even with some inspiring commentary or whatever, anybody can look
Mm.
up to.
This is kind of on this, and then kind of on some other topics that I'm passionate about. But I follow Mita Malik,
Hmm.
Mitamallick. I think she's at Carta, I believe. I don't know, high up at Carta, but she posts a lot of inspirational posts, talks about boundaries, talks about diversity, talks about,
Love it.
women taking their place. And she's just really she's a great follow.
Okay, excellent. I didn't know her, so I might check out and follow. Thanks. And as we approach towards the end of the podcast, the last section is mostly about putting you on the therapist chair now. So what I'm going to do is, if you are the therapist, what are some
Mhm.
of the challenges? What are some of the struggles, problems that you see within the community, all the revenue community, commercial, roles, and what are you trying to improve? What's your platform?
Yeah. I think we have lost, and I talk about this all the time, and lost the connection with the individual consumer. So we forget that we don't have MQLs and SQLs and things like that. The thing that I would diagnose the revenue community that you and I both live in, either directly or peripherally, is that we've just really forgotten about the individual consumer. We've forgotten that it's a person that somehow connects with our product, that purchase it for a reason. We call people MQLs and SQLs and clients and customers and leads and prospects and all these other names, and just not like they're a human. And we don't treat them like humans. We group them into segments and personas and all this kind of thing. And that is truly something I believe in. Like, Chief Evangelist Consulting is about creating evangelists out of your everyday customers. Like, you and I, we can't afford to go hire some fancy evangelist, or an influencer to talk about our stuff. We have to create them, and we create them by, having a great product. And then for you, it's like, how do I make the service? What's the experience of being a customer of Flola like? What does it feel like? And how do I attach my customers to that so that they love it in a way that they're going to go tell their friends about it? And, I've seen companies blow up like that. And actually, that's how Wednesday Women is growing. Like, we have zero marketing. We're working a couple hours a week as part-time founders. And, we have 3,500 followers in 7 months on a business page. And it's only because the people that we serve talk about us and share about us, share our posts and things like that. So that's
Yeah.
something I'm super passionate about. I think people really underestimate the individual consumer sharing about their product, and they lose track of that. That's my big platform.
The first time that I saw your name and your profile on LinkedIn, etc., that was basically, I shared a post saying, like, there's too many men on my feed. I want to follow some
Mhm.
woman leaders in this space. And
Mhm.
a lot of people were tagging you under that post, which is how I came to know you, and etc., etc. and your title was Chief Evangelism Officer, Chief Evangelist Officer. I'm sorry if I'm saying that
Mhm.
wrong. And I thought, what a title! That's amazing. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do it with my business now. That's what I'm trying to learn. That's quite new and fresh. At the same time, there's all this literature about true fans, allies, people who promote your business, da da da. But as you say, like I can't pay for the fanciest influencer. Actually, I don't even believe in that. Like, why am I paying anybody? That's another side note. Sorry. But how is evangelism different from all those other things that we know of, like word of mouth, referrals, true fans? In your mind, how clear is it, this evangelist thing?
Well, I mean, all of that word of mouth referrals, none of that happens unless you've created an evangelist of some
Mm,
sort. I'm not going to tell you, just like you said earlier, you said it. You're like, I will talk about the things I love. Me too. I will talk about the companies I love. I will talk about Grove Cookies. I will talk about us in tech. I will talk about all the things that I love for free forever because I'm attached to their product, their mission, the founder, something like that. So you can't do any of that unless you've created the evangelist, and actually not created, you've earned the right, by giving something that's valuable to them
yeah.
without expectation, then you've earned the right and potentially. So what you saw in that post with people tagging me, those are just regular people. They're evangelists for me and Wednesday Women. That's how we grow. I didn't ask anybody to post under there. That just happened
Yeah, I
because
love
of,
that.
the way they feel about the company and the brand.
Okay, so I'm very curious. Like, do you want to share a little bit about, what kind of engagements you go into now in your business? Like, how do you preach or teach or handhold towards evangelism? Like, do you want to give a few examples?
Yeah, yeah. Well, my main business is community strategy, building communities, and that I think is an integral part of building a really strong community is building evangelists for your brand. That starts with connecting, creating relationships. The psychology of what that feels like. I mean, the psychology of for you, it's like, why do you feel so attached to Pavilion? Like, what does it feel like when you enter Pavilion? What is that experience? It's more than just another community because all of us are in 17 Slack communities.
Yeah.
And so, I interweave that into the basics of community building.
Hmm.
So all of that is everything we do is in order to create an experience that is beyond expectation for the member so that we can earn that evangelism. We can grow organically without paying, SEO and Google ads, which are so much more expensive and less effective that everybody's talking about. Yeah, I think it's the easiest return on invest. It's not easy. I lied. Totally not easy to build a community. It is a great return on investment
Yes,
if
I
you
agree.
can if you will invest the time, energy, and love
Yeah.
into your product or service.
And it's stick and sustainable. I think one of the themes for 24 is definitely going to be, helping overselling, retention. Everyone's talking about AI. I'm like, whatever AI gets in so far other than ChatGPT, it just messes things up. Whenever I even feel the smell of AI, I'm like, okay, thanks, take me out of this relation. So I think relations are more important.
Mhm.
Trust is the base
Mhm.
of anything in sales. So communities are built around trust. So I think
Yep.
the very essence of thing is that human interaction, that relation. And why do I care about Pavilion or this, that? Because I feel the trust. I feel that people care about each other. I don't feel like I'm in a pipeline and an automated something. So all of those things. I have a specific question for you. Maybe you want to
Mhm.
throw in a few examples. Do you feel like there are companies out there who really crack this evangelism thing, or who have built communities that are quite interesting and sticky?
Companies that have really done evangelism. I would say, goodness gracious. Well, I mean, one, it's a totally different, kind of totally different. It's a B2C. So
Hmm.
Sephora, the beauty brand. I mean, they have
Hmm.
amazing community. I mean, you log in, there's 50,000 people on there day or night, 24/7, easy. And it's because people, it's not, of course, they use influencers, but it's not all influencers. It's the everyday user that they've enjoyed their community experience. B2B brands, I will probably struggle to come up with ones off the top of my head, but there are definitely ones that people, love and will talk about and refer. So,
All right, that's great. Final question is, amidst all this noise and automation and that move away from the humanity of things in this industry, the always be closing mentality, etc. Do you think there is hope? Like, do you see hope? Do you think there is a move towards a better future, let's say.
Yeah, I think what's old is new. I think we are starting to see that. People are starting to understand that. Like, I go bring my neighbor a pie when they're sick. I am go to the mailbox. They're at the mailbox. They say, "Did you go to the amazing restaurant? You know, the new restaurant in town?" I'm like, "Oh, what's the name?" And then I go to the restaurant. Like, I think there is this thought that these human relationships will take us farther. I think you're going to see it with the plethora of events this year. So, you know, not just human connection, but in real life,
Hmm.
human connection
Hmm.
is going to, I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And I think those will propel, obviously it propels relationships, it propels business. You know, I'm more likely to go, you know, if I need your software, I'm going to come to you first because I like you. And I'm going to
Yeah,
give you the opportunity to talk about your product, even if it's not the fit or I can't afford it, but I would, you know, love the opportunity. And so those are the people I'm going to go to first, the people that I like, respect, and, you know, maybe share some of my values.
I love that. What's old is new. Is that a saying, really? Because I'm obviously English is not my mother tongue, so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's old is new. I think that's probably is a saying. There's like maybe it's a part of a bigger saying, but
Okay, for me it's a saying
yeah,
from now on. I really love it. What's old is new. Great.
yeah. I mean, think about your grandma. How'd your grandma do business?
Yeah,
You know, she
exactly.
was still selling, influencing
Yeah,
in all different kinds of ways, no
yeah.
matter what her job was. And how did she do it?
Okay, next time anybody tells me like what's your sales methodology, I'll say, Grandma, that's my sales
Grandma.
methodology. There you go.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you to love me, and I'm gonna get you to like love my product and service and feel a connection to the brand.
Yeah.
And I would say that's probably what Chili Piper did. Like when they were smaller, that's, you know, that was probably their strategy. People love them because they were had that attachment to the brand or the founders because they
Yeah.
have very visible founders. Where you have so much opportunity, you should definitely do that.
Exactly. I think that's what we're trying. Now, Leslie, our time is over and I need to cut it on the clock just like any good therapist.
Darn.
Any
Okay.
any closing remarks?
Any closing I think I said everything.
Good.
Closing remarks. You know what? Every behind just like what's old is new and it's about the person, like what you see. And I know everybody talks about this, but like anybody that says life is perfect on social media or on, you know, you're talking to them and they seem untouchable, they are just like you and me. You know, it's always
Yeah.
weird to me when someone says, "How did you do it all?" Or, you know, like you said, "How did you do it all?" I'm like, "What do you mean? I'm not doing it?" You know, and I just think people probably aren't as open and vulnerable about that
I
as maybe
love
you
that
or
you
I,
say
but
it. Yeah, but I approached you, we spoke, and just as I was popping the question, would you come to my podcast, Lizzie? And you said, you know what? I would love to come to your podcast, just as I was asking the question. So I think
yep,
that's exactly that. Like, we're all humans at the end, and,
yep.
nobody's like untouchable leader and whatever. Wonderful. So that's a wrap on this episode of Sales Therapy. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to us on YouTube and your favorite podcast. My lovely guest, Leslie, thank you very much for being with me today and see you on the next episode.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent.